Hi, and welcome back to Flute 101, 101 tips on how to play the flute. My name is Octavio Cortez, and today we are going to discuss one of the two kinds of flutes that exist in the world, or rather, in the process of defining, right, what a flute is. We're going to explore a little bit on the two types of flutes. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the fixed whistle kind. You see, all of flutes in the world produce the sound by having the air divide in two on a whistle. That's what a whistle does, right? You blow in, some air goes into the instrument, other part of the air goes out of the instrument. And that is the principle with which flutes work. Here's an example of that, right? We have this little flute. This is a Mexican flute from the Aztec culture, right? Or, yes, here you go. You can see that the air will go into the whistle, and you may see the light. You may see the light going on and off right there, right? Perfect. That is, you're looking at essentially the path of the air. It will go through this hole, the one on top, right? And then we'll divide into in there. The other hole actually does nothing. You essentially have to close it just to prevent the instrument from leaking air, right? Because it has to be closed on the other end, on this end, and it also has to have an open end. We are trying to see it. There you go. There it is. That's the end of the flute right there at the very end, right? That's essentially what happens. So the air is going to go in this direction, such a fashion, right, like this, and divide in two. That's the whistle. And this is, of course, a variety of flute called the fixed whistle flute. This is the one that the flying men, the voladores, use in Mexico on this ritual that they perform when they hang from their feet from a very respectable height, and the rope is actually entangled on a big tall pole, and when they fly they actually unwind that wire, that rope, as they fly right lower and lower, and eventually they get to the ground. These priests play this instrument, the traditional songs, while they're doing this unwinding of this rope from very, very high altitude. And at the same time, they may be playing drums for this music. It's quite a ceremony. And this was one of those examples, right? A fixed whistle flute. There are many kinds. Here's another one. This one is from Colombia. They call it gaita in Colombia. And it's made out of the cactus heart. Right, so this is the hollow heart of a cactus. They essentially burn the holes. As you can see, there are burn marks. They're not actually carved. They're burnt into the cactus. And what they do is they have this plaster of clay and wax. They use a feather, a hollow feather, to direct the air into the whistle. Right there. Right, can you see it? Yes, there it is. So the end of this cactus heart is actually sharpened a little bit to create the whistle, and that's how this instrument works. It's an Aboriginal instrument from the Sierra Nevada, from Santa Marta, a very high range mountain. Actually, the closest one to the equator. And the only place in the world where you could be in tropical seas, see the edge of the water, right? See the beach, see the forest, see the high mountains, and then see a snow cap, a permanent glacier on top of these mountains. This is the region from where this flute comes from. The Arhuaco culture are the ones who make it. And it's also the origin for the famous cumbia rhythm from Colombia, right? So that's another example. You have all other examples right throughout the world in ocarinas too. Ocarinas are a type of flute. They do have a hole, right, or several holes, and they have a little whistle in there. Again, this one actually has two. It's double-ended instrument, right? It's a flute also, and it's made out of clay, right? And of course, it's another example of a fixed whistle flute. Here's another one, also an ocarina, and right, original instruments, decorative as well, of course. And there are other examples, right? Of course, we have this other one. Some sound rather similar, except the shape of the instrument gives it a different tone, because the way the instrument vibrates depends on its shape mostly. Like a guitar has its particular sound because the shape of the wave that it produces has that shape of the instrument, right? It's like ripples in the surface of the water, and that's why it sounds like a guitar. Likely, these instruments sound how they sound depending on the shape, the form of the whistle, and the size and shape of the acoustic chamber, right? The instrument itself. Here's another curious example. This one, I'm seeing. There you go. Those two holes are not meant to be covered, not meant to be used to play the instrument. This is rather an onomatopoeic instrument in that it simulates the sound of an eagle. Right? So this is meant to be played like this. And if you were to hear that in a high mountain, trust me, you'll be looking for the bird. It's quite an interesting example. And it's also the only example I have of a double whistle instrument, right? There are others including ones that have holes and can be played simultaneously. Come from Europe and many other cultures, but yeah, this is the only one I have with a double whistle, which also exists. And here's a very curious one. This one is another onomatopoeic, right? One that simulates the sound of another animal or something. And if you saw the other one has the shape of an eagle, this one is actually a jaguar, right? Quite an interesting instrument. And what this does is, well, the wind goes in here, and it has a chamber that distorts the wind. This is not really a whistle in on itself, but I thought it would be an interesting example of how a flute or a wind instrument can be created in order to simulate animals, in this case a jaguar, meant to be closed like this and creating a chamber, right, and kind of open it the way you will simulate the roar of the animal. I'm going to make a little example from very soft to louder, just so you understand a little bit how it sounds and how it works. So by creating that noise, right, it's actually noise, it's meant to simulate the roar of a jaguar. So these are examples of fixed whistle flutes, right, from the world, or instruments, right? Again, the flute is always based on the whistle. The next video is going to be about the other kind of flutes that you find throughout the world, which are the ones that have a whistle that needs to be completed by the mouth of the instrumentalist. You will see that on the next video, and for now, let's leave it at that. This is another family of instruments. You may have played also the recorder, right? That is another example of a fixed whistle flute. I hope you had fun. You may have learned something, and at least went through it and got to see an instrument that you may not have seen before. Thank you for listening. Again, my name is Octavio. Don't forget to subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of these videos. The next one, again, will be about the instruments that you complete the whistle with your mouth. Okay? Thanks again. See you soon.